Could that just put him over the edge?
I'm not too sure. I don't think they did well.
He's a bully.
I'm just so sick and tired. I'm hanging on a wire, a foot over the fire, and it's burning. I can feel it inside. Done with the same cliche. Done with the day after day. There's got to be a way. Now is the time to break the tide. I'll live, I'll die for what is wrong and what is right. I'll take the pain for all the ones without a name. To be invincible, we'll be invincible.
They still have a lot of holes to fill.
We'll be
He didn't get fired. He didn't get fired. No, he didn't get fired. He never got his contract renewed.
Hey guys, welcome to Two Guys in Hockey Talk. I'm Evan Rev Reynolds, and I got my partner, the faithful Pawel the Cat. How you doing, man? In episode 10, season 5. You ready to go?
I am. We just keep rolling and steamrolling through this season. Welcome, everyone. Remember to like, share, subscribe. Give us a follow on YouTube. You can follow Evan at X at REVNEV or me at hockey_2. We've been engaging because it's been a busy diggy-dong dandy, as you like to say, or something around those lines, Evan, in the world of hockey. We've got a great show for you again tonight. We're just working out some of the kinks, as always. You know, no one's perfect except for maybe Evan, so let's talk about that. But Evan, how are you?
I am fabulous. I'm ready to take a bevy here and start our show. So I don't know if you you got your I want to, before we just do a quick cheers here, I just want to say to everyone that tonight I'm sure that Pawel's back is a little sore because he's been carrying me all week. He's come up with a lot of the work this weekend as we go into, and everything I'm bringing is just extra cheese. That's it. So, hey, cheers to my partner, and hopefully his back feels good tonight.
It feels pretty all right. I mean, you do most of the work most of the time. I'm just a pretty face, you know, by some standards, just to look here. So really, you could just like record me talking, and then you'll throw it in, and that's all that works. Hey, Aaron's got a question for her. We're going to get into it, Aaron. If the Oilers lose to the Shark, is it time to panic? I think Oilers should be panicking already. But Evan,
Yes.
We've got a great show. Our guest may or may not be coming up. There's still a lot to do. We welcome everyone. Make sure you give our website a follow. JRW Design does great work. We have a lot of articles ongoing all the time. Updates
All the time
of things happening, different markets, different writers. And if you want to write for us, please DM us. We definitely want to hear from you. That would be wonderful. Evan, where do you want to take our show tonight?
Okay, well, right now, so we have our scheduled guest tonight is I'll introduce him in a little while. He's our guest headliner tonight. Alex, if you're out there, we apologize. We never sent you the link early on. That was a confusion on our part, and so we are not a part of the Confucius religion per se, but we seem a little confused tonight. So Alex from Five for Fighting, we're just waiting on him. He'll be probably arriving shortly. In the meantime, we do have a whole bunch of content that we can still talk about. There's tons of stuff, tons around the NHL. We are going to be able to get into some rants and around some. I got my own rant. We might go with 2 rants tonight. Heck, we'll keep our sponsors and our partners busy tonight. Why don't we do this? Why don't we go into our first tonight? And because we're waiting in on Alec, I'm going to leave you guys in a little suspense. Aaron's asking about the Oilers. We've talked lots, but unfortunately for the Oilers, they're going to be the big topic of discussion over the next, I'm going to say, week to 3 weeks minimum to see if they come out of this hole. But in the meantime, what I want to do is I want to get ready for our REVS Top 15 that is brought to you by the Kalkaska Battlers. They are the Michigan Independence Hockey League. They're one of our sponsors. They are sponsoring our Revs Top 15 here tonight. So if you want to follow them, go to their website. You can get all the information on their latest. So you know what? Let me do this. I want to pull up the latest article that I just read. Oh, now it's moved off of here. So they just shared some information recently that their home opener, they had a girl hit with a puck in the very first game. They had a great crowd on hand. So thanks to you fans who are in the Michigan area in Kalkaska going out to watch that. But go in. You can also check their live stream. There you go. There we are. Two Gays and Hockey Talk on their site is one of their many sponsors that they're working with. So go over to the YouTube channel at Kalkaska Battlers, and you'll be able to check out their live stream as they're working through being able to get that out to all of you guys. All right, guys, let's go into our Revs Top 15 tonight. I have a player that I want to introduce you to. I want to take you. So we've talked through our top 6. Then we went into Berkeley last week, who Zylstra loves the name Berkeley. This week, I want to talk about number 7 ranking. And that is, now there's going to be a lot of people talking to you about a defenseman. We'll talk about them in 2 weeks. But the person that I want you to pay attention to is someone by the name of Caden. Caden with a C, just like saying the Cayman Islands. Caden Lindstrom, and he is no relation to Nicholas, guys. Caden Lindstrom, this character plays for the Medicine Hat Tigers of the Western Hockey League. Caden, you ready for the stats on Caden? Caden is 6'5", man. 6'5", 205 pounds, 17-year-old right now playing for the Medicine Hat Tigers of the Western Hockey. Like, they are producing a lot this year in the top. 25 points in the first 18 games this season already with 14 goals. Wow. So Caden is a player that you're going to want to pay attention to. Excellent. Like, for his size, most players at 6'5" don't move extremely well. He's got those long and smooth strides, and his breakaway speed is incredible. And he also, if you think of a player like Raphael Lavoie of the Oilers, I was thinking Aaron was on earlier talking about the Oilers and how he has great puck protection skills to know how to use that size. That's the kind of player Caden is. He can stick handle even in tight places. And for a 6'5" character, that's not a common trait that you're going to find too often. So, guys, I want you to pay attention to Caden Lindstrom. And today, he is our top 15 in Revs ranked at number 8. All right, Pawel. So here's my question. I think that we should venture over around Aaron's question right now while we're waiting in on Alex.
But I want to break some news. So, because I know that this has been kind of just announced. So,
okay, hang on. We're not going to break news around the rink without mentioning our great sponsors over at the Sports Empire. Sports Empire, all your podcast news. You can get NFL, NBA, wrestling, of course, we're their hockey content until they find someone better than us. But in the meantime, let's go around the rink.
You mean you.
All right, bud. What do we got?
So, allegedly, during the Seattle Kraken practice today, Jordan Eberle. Oh boy.
Oh, sounds like somebody's got an emergency somewhere. That's what happens. This is Jordan Eberle. We got some problems going on.
This is so exciting to see Jordan Eberle. That's how exciting it is. We got the bell, the goal. So, it seems like during a practice, he got cut by a skate blade again, and so they're bringing up Shane Wright and Ryan Winterton. So again, with the death of Adam Johnson recently, this is a big loss to the Seattle Kraken, who's one of their top 6 guys.
Wow.
Right? And again, there's going to be way more discussions about wearing not only neck guards, but better protection all around in order to protect their players. So, you have to be mindful. Now, because Jordan Eberle played for Edmonton, let's get in to what's going on with Edmonton. Evan, where do you want to start?
Why don't you start with updating the people that may not be familiar in the last 2 days of the transactions, and then we can talk about where they're going.
So after a performance that wasn't very good, it was very inconsistent versus the Vancouver Canucks. Edmonton lost 6-2, big loss. And to save face, Ken Holland put Jack Campbell on waivers the day before. He has now cleared.
Wow.
He is being assigned to the Bakersfield to find his game, to kind of build up his confidence again, which I think is important. But that cap hit that he had, $5 million, they're going to shed a little bit of cap, and they're going to have a little bit of space to move around. However, because they've been bringing up other players, they're still cap strapped. So barring a wild trade, Edmonton is going to be stuck with them. I know they brought up the E-Bug right now, but essentially they're hoping that Calvin Pickard comes up and can play a few games, while they're going to give Stuart Skinner the reins for the remainder of the next few weeks, depending what happens. And they face the San Jose Sharks, who have the worst season right now, except they did beat the Philadelphia Flyers. Jamie Vasco, I'm looking at you if you're upset about it. I'm sorry, but it's going to be an interesting game today. And I really feel this is going to be one of the most highlighted and most watched games tomorrow, because if they lose, and that is a big possibility, there's going to be panic, huge panic, like you heard the fire alarm in my house in Edmonton and Oilers Nation. Your thoughts on the situation?
Yeah, well, remember we were talking about records in the 20-game mark. Already at the 11-game mark, they have to play 640 hockey all the way to the end of the season. You got to win 64% of your games in order to even make the playoffs at 96 points as a wild card, because that's essentially usually the cutoff within a point or two. Maybe you'll sneak in at a 94, 95. Chances are you're not. You're going to need 96, 97 points, and that's going to make the difference in the declaration. So I know Zill I had a conversation. So I was traveling along with the Lost Trucker. I was able to reach out because I was just on a trip recently, spending 7-hour drive. And we had a discussion actually around the Canucks games against the Oilers, of course. So interesting enough, we'll get to some of your mention of the Canucks and talk about them a little bit later, Zylstra. We're going to just focus in around this at this moment. So 640 hockey, but I want us to stop and think about what 640 hockey really is, because most good teams that are going to finish in first place will play 650 hockey all season to get first place. Yeah. That's all season long. That doesn't mean leaving out the 11 games. Now, let's do a breakdown of an analysis here. The problem here is if you think they're going to turn it around in the next 10 games and play 650 hockey, when does a team after 11 games, or I believe it's 11 games they have in now, right? So after 8, 9, 10.
2, 8, and 1. So 11, yes.
Yeah, 11 games. So what's the chance that they're going to play better than 500 hockey for 10 games? What's the chance? Because if you haven't played that well, you're the second worst team in the league. You're about to play the worst team in the league. Aaron brings up a great point. What if you don't win? What if you actually lose this game? What's going to happen to this team? It's about to implode. So the question comes down, and we're going to be able to play a chance. We're going to get a chance to talk. And if you guys got some comments, throw them in here. We'll mention them, and we'll even chat more about it. But here's a question. Do you move out the coach? Do you make a massive trade? Do you take out the GM and move him out? So let me start with the one, and then Pawel, you decide on one of the other ones and throw your thoughts. I think a move right now, it's pretty straightforward. We got pretty much the same team the last 2 seasons. Yes, they made it there, but what's happening, it seems unheard of in NHL history for this good of a team, for this quality of players, even if you have some injuries. And so you're in the last year of a contract. Do you really want Ken Holland pulling the switch at any time with anyone when he's done his contract at year end? So I think it's time to take the GM, move him on, bring in a new GM if you have someone ready, and if not, do an interim just like they did with Keith Gretzky before, or someone else. Bring someone in and let them figure something out for this season, because I'm telling you, their runway is about 5 games long, and this season is over. That's my take on this, man.
So yes and no, I agree to some extent. So a few things. A, I don't think it's 5 games long. I literally think it's tomorrow's game or this road. Let's say that. It's honestly like if you can't beat it, then. B, you are correct. It is very hard, and a low probability that they can make it back and be the St. Louis Blues of 2019,
wow.
which, as everyone remembers, and everyone points to that. But in the 100 history plus of the NHL, how many times have teams done that? So it's an anomaly, right?
Yeah.
B, you have one of the best coaches who have done a lot of things for this team. But listening to Oilers media of the last few days, just to kind of get a pulse on what's been going on, he is a good coach and he has done a lot. And changing coaches, Edmonton has done that quite a while. The onus does fall on the players. But there is something to say about accountability. And I do feel that Jay Woodcroft is not being accountable. And I'm looking at Evan Bouchard, who was praised as being one of the best, but he has struggled. And there has been no accountability, except for when Kane was put down on the lower line on the bottom 6, for the defense. Now, this all stems down to Kevin Holland and the roster that he has put up. And I believe that even though he's in his final year, they're not going to let him go. But he is not making these decisions in a vacuum, I believe. That being said, he could, just like Peter Chiarelli did with Mikko Koskinen, which I'm sure Oiler fans would love to have right now with the numbers that he brought to this team. But at the end of the day, they're going to let him walk off into the sun, given what he did for this team. Whether you agree or disagree, he got him to the Western Conference Finals. He got him against Vegas, who gave them the hardest time. And it's a bit of both. It's a bit of, why did you change something that didn't need fixing? You could just tweak it. Yeah. And why did Ken Holland capstrap this team and overpay for certain guys? And now you can't even bring guys up. That's how much you're in a panic. And so I look at it as there's going to be major changes regardless. But I'm calling it right now, Evan. I don't know if Edmonton can even make the playoffs. I really don't, because it's going to be tough.
You're calling that at the 11-game mark.
Yeah, because even though there's 71 games, you have to go quite high, as you said, 650, and you know how hard it is to chase. And they have shown no sign of like, this isn't like 3-2, 2-1 games where you're like, oh man, you're just barely in it. These are being blown out. You're getting scored on 4 times each game, if not more. And so I look at it as like there's a bigger problem in that room. And the other factor is I think McDavid's hurt. But I'll let you allude to whatever you want to chat about.
Wow. So Dylan just mentions take GM out and goalie coaching staff. So let's take a moment. This has been talked about. I've talked about this for a long time. So one of the things that is a concern for me, and let's just put a disclaimer for anyone that's a fan and we're talking, and we're supporters. We're fans of the team regardless of win or lose. It's been proven in places like Edmonton and Ottawa. It's been proven in places like Pittsburgh or even for Arizona to a certain degree, considering it's not a hockey market, right? Fans are still fans, and they're just angry and mad because they spend money and they invest their time. And they're frustrated, right? And so that's the bigger thing. Just before I mention this, where do we go? Kyle says the deeper the deficit teams dig, they also rely on teams ahead of them to struggle. That's a great point, Kyle. Excellent point, because it's going to require teams above to start dropping. Just like a team dropping, like the Bruins starting well, it's going to require other teams winning a lot in order to make that difference. To me, the Bruins, by the way, and we'll talk about that later, are actually a shoo-in now to make the playoffs no matter what now this season.
But you look at a team like Boston, and we'll get into it, but you look at that. How is it that they lose these players and continue? And they had McAvoy out for four games, still serving that suspension, and still compete at the level they do, right?
Okay.
And people say, well, it's the competition. Everyone's good in the NHL. Like, there's better teams than others, but you're still playing. How is it that you make that work, right? You have 2 of the best players in the world. I see it as a failure.
Okay, well, let's come back, because I was talking about the coaching staff before you so rudely interrupted me, which, hey, it's okay, because that's your job. You got grace this week for helping me out. Okay, so one of the things around the goaltending coaching situation I just want to mention is, because we pick on a player because of their salary or the way they're playing on the ice or something, please, everyone understand this. We would still go out for a beer with that person. We would still go out and buy him supper. even if they're the worst player to play in the NHL history, they made the NHL. Even if they just make the ECHL or the AHL, or they play in a foreign European, if they make the junior leagues or play on Canadian teams or American teams or Swedish teams, represent their country, these guys are still the elite of the elite, and there's only so many available that are this good in the world. So please hear us. We are talking about business. That's what we're talking about. So Jaden Schwartz, as good, I don't know how someone can last a decade, go through all, like I know people have said, well, Skinner, you know, look how he's doing well, and he's been the developer of Stuart Skinner. So if you want to credit him for last year for Stuart Skinner and all the development, then you better credit the losses. You better credit the bad play. You have had some of the tallest goalies, some of the biggest goalies in the world playing for the Edmonton Oilers, and they still let pucks fly in the high corners. Teach these guys a hybrid style to play low and high, work in between. You will find it's okay for the odd puck to go low. Pucks almost never go low unless it's a deflection or from the point and they can't see it. But all those pucks up top, way harder to get a puck low because pucks with all the sticks rise. It's really hard to keep it flat along the ice. So start playing these guys higher. But you can't do that if you got guys that are teaching and goalie coaches teaching the drops and teaching, like they need to bring someone else in. And even if it's not Schwartz's fault, they need a new psyche in the minds of their goalies right now. They need a new change because you can't change out coaches and general managers and everybody else and stick for 10 years dating back to the decade of darkness and not change out your goalie coach. That's one of the most important things.
Sometimes a fresh voice can be different. Now, the one thing to note is that a lot of these coaches or goalies have their own guys that they work with, right? And let's talk about something, because I know people harp on Dustin Schwartz, and I understand why, and I agree with you that maybe it's time for him to be moved on from their organization. He also trains and works out with none other than Carter Hart. How's he doing, Evan? Because a lot of Oilers fans want him.
So here's the thing.
Carter Hart is succeeding on a team like Philly, and yet
so it's called works out and trains with, not as his goaltending coach. That's different.
No, so when he trains with him too. He trains with him in the offseason.
Yeah, but it's an off-season piece. It's totally different because it's a conflict of interest for the Oilers to be training Carter Hart. It's not a real training session. That, first of all, he can't hire a goaltending coach from that actually crosses borders. So some of those rumors are actually false. We can bring some people on to work with that. Interesting enough. So Zilstra has another, she's all over the place tonight here. She wouldn't take Hart if you paid her. Interesting enough, because I would take Hart in a heartbeat. In fact, right now, I'm ready to propose a trade. Are you ready, Oilers fans?
Let's do it.
Let's do this, and then we're going to move on to another topic, because some of you guys are saying, I'm so sick and tired of the... Well, if the Oilers didn't lose so much, we wouldn't be talking about them. Instead of winning and scoring the most, now we're talking about a draft pick, a top 5, possibly Revs top 15, if this continues. Right now, they're guaranteed a Revs top 15 at this rate. So
you're going to have to tell me who you think they'll pick up.
So I do want to mention, Zilster brought this up. Let's talk about this before we go into the potential of some trades that they need to look at. Nurse contract is an albatross with the no move trade. Okay, contracts. Let me ask you, Pawel. Yeah. You will tell me right now the contracts on the Edmonton Oilers. Name me more than 2 contracts that are bad contracts in Campbell and Nurse. Is there anyone else that you think is an albatross, terrible contract that's awful? Not just a little, but a really bad contract signing.
I guess the parameters of what is really bad in albatross would
in other words, we're not talking $1 million. We're not talking $1 million and a half overpay. We're talking someone that's getting paid like anywhere from, say, $2 to $2+ million over anyone else paying them for what they're doing. Is there anything that's crazy outside of those 2 contracts?
Stands out like egregiously. I mean, you can make a case for maybe Cody Ceci, but he does play your top 4 minutes. I guess
he's $3.5 million. He's $3.5 million.
Ekholm, but it wasn't signed for that price. I mean, Ekholm's pricey for his age, but he wasn't signed to that contract by
anyone in the league would pay him $6+.
I agree. I'm
Right?
just thinking like
I know.
Really.
So Kulak 2.5. You got on the back end. 3 point something on Bouchard. Anything below 4 is a really good deal for players, unless they're a third line pairing.
Well, and it's you have to look at term as well, right? That's
right. Yes.
Thing.
Yep. So okay. So now let's look at this. I mean, term is different when you're talking 4 years down the road, because that's not right now. That doesn't matter, and there's always those contracts will matter then. Here's my point. You can rip apart Edmonton all you want, but I can take every single team in the NHL, and I can tell you at least 2 bad contracts, really bad contracts on every single team. Okay, I'll tell you what. While you're talking later, I'll go pull up theirs, and then I'll come back and we'll talk about that.
That I know who you would say for New Jersey, but yeah, Carolina Hurricanes, I think, do good business.
Okay.
But I know you'd say Timo Meier for New Jersey.
Absolutely. Okay, but you see every team has an albatross contract. So I think we got to understand, you can't have and say, oh, it was a terrible Nurse contract, right? But we have this contract that's just terrible. Like Evander Kane and Nugent Hopkins and Hyman are all good contracts for complementary players that play with superstars. You can't beat the $5 million.
If they're performing to some extent. Nugent Hopkins has struggled this year.
Struggled. Hyman more so than Nuge. Nuge is right on track for a $5 million player.
I don't know.
I'm not seeing Nuge a problem.
One that struggled to their bottom 6 are really hard. Like I mean,
but
Derek Ryan. But
what's McLeod? $2 million? Just under $2 million? That's nothing. Yeah. You know,
but he's not performing. He's not putting up
I get it.
Right? So,
but we're talking 11 games, so it's hard to judge in that small amount.
Agreed.
Right, for those,
anyway, there needs to be a bit more accountability. I think the problem is like there's a separation between Evan good GMs and great GMs, and there's only 32 GM jobs right now, and you have to separate yourself to being the great GM. And what makes you a great GM? You look at Yzerman and what he did in the offseason with Detroit, and people harped on him. What's going on this? And now all these changes are paying off for him. You know, he brought in these guys, and they're performing, and they're winning. And if you don't have that, when everyone's winning, everything's great.
Yeah.
If you're not winning, that's when problems arise. And people confound all the issues and say, well, this is the problem, and this isn't happening.
Yeah.
The problem with the Edmonton Oilers, and I will say this to the end of time, they need to give a full 60 minutes. Until they give a full 60 minutes, they will not win anything, right?
Okay, so let's talk about a pot. So this is a little bit around the rumor mill. I do not give a lot of cred to this. I've sent a few things out. I haven't got any. Sometimes when I send something out and I don't get anything back, I kind of debate, because usually if it's really bad, they get back and they just say, no, that's ridiculous. Or if it's really close and they're super excited, they want to break the news and they'll say something. But if they're spending time looking into it, it's usually quiet. That's what I find. And I do have some connections around Calgary. They're not getting back, so I don't know what's happening on this, but there has been talk around, there's not much for trade partners right now, but Calgary's also struggling. Edmonton's struggling. And so
Calgary's we just won 2 games though now in a row.
Yep. Well, and it's younger. And it's younger, right? So could there be a slight change of plans though in Calgary?
Yes.
And could there be something to move right now between Calgary and Edmonton in exchange? So let's have some fun. Let's armchair GM this thing for about 3 to 4 minutes. Is that good with you all?
Let's go.
And then we're going to move on to something else. Okay,
we're hoping Kyle shows up soon, but
Kyle, I think it's Alex, but Kyle's around too.
Let's get Kyle on.
Yeah, Kyle will give us more info right now. Okay, so I want to go back on this here now, and I want to think about what do they need? They need defense right now. So let's just hypothetically say we got to play numbers and stuff like that. What if Calgary said, we're willing to take a chance because in a couple of years, it won't be an albatross contract for Nurse. Would Nurse accept a trade to Calgary and send Hanifin up? But we got to level out the contracts. So right now, they have Dustin Wolf waiting in the wings. Edmonton needs a goalie. Is there a way to make it that Markstrom and Noah Hanifin get moved up to Edmonton for Nurse and someone else? So is that possible? Maybe another player that's going to complement, but now you also have, because you're maybe going to get a better goalie than Jack Campbell. Will they have to take Jack Campbell back and then they pay the price on eating the finances? I don't think so. I think they're going to have to keep him down. I don't know how the money would work, but there is ways to add in and take out. And I'm very interested if that could be a potential option. If not with them, bring in a third team. Could Jack Campbell get moved over to Chicago and Chicago picks up your first round? Do you give up your first round draft pick to unload Campbell and then pick up another goalie from somewhere else? But you're not going to get a first string guy. What I can tell you is there has been some open dialogue with the Anaheim Ducks. Read into that what you may. I don't know what that means, but there's been open dialogue. And people need to get off the John Gibson will never go to Canada, because that's not true. Someone very close to him that's very reputable has actually said that that's not a true case. It depends on the team.
So my understanding is there's been rumblings, and Edmonton sports media has reported that Edmonton is very interested in Jordan Bennington out of St. Louis.
Yes, I heard that today.
And they can make the money work. So he's a little bit more. He still has some term. He has the Stanley Cup champion, in 2019, as you remember, and he is fiery. So imagine like a very young hot Mike Smith. So there is rumblings there, and Edmonton has traded with St. Louis in the past before. I'm not saying it's not possible. Markstrom has a no movement clause, and
Doug Armstrong Armstrong and Holland are close, right?
Yes, and Hanifin in Calgary has a modified no trade clause. So I mean, there are some logistical things. Yeah, I'm looking more at D, and Calgary needs scoring. That's their big thing. But here's a thing to consider if you're looking at it. What if it's somebody like a Huberdeau, who would be an excellent playmaker here in Edmonton if Calgary held on to some salary, and Edmonton sends something big their way, like a Hyman or a Nuge or someone like that, in their top six, or an Evander Kane, Again, I'm spitballing. I know these are silly. They're fun. We get to do these in pastimes,
Yes.
Off the show, I do these a lot. You can do it all cat friendly for fun. But really, at the end of the day, Edmonton is looking at a few goalies that have some contract and are solid. I know there's been rumblings about Saros, even though people continue to say, well, Nashville would never do that. Listen, if you offered McDavid or Draisaitl for Saros, they do it in a heartbeat. What are you talking about? Never. If Gretzky was traded, anybody can be traded. It's just highly unlikely.
Yeah.
Gibson is one out there. The one that I think people don't really focus on is, and again, he's not a big name. Look at what's happening in Buffalo. Buffalo has some cap space. You got Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, one of my favorite names in the NHL. You've got Devin Levi coming up. And you still have, what's his name? That got injured. And he's been on the sideline. The name will come to me. But
okay, no problem.
Just look at those kind of names, right?
So we've kind of talked around some of this stuff, and we've talked to we're blue in the face about the Oilers. They've kind of kept things the way they are just based on their season.
Eric Comrie.
Comrie. Comrie is a very serviceable guy. Yeah. So let's move over to the Bruins. Let's talk about some success and some fun and some excitement. It's right across the way from behind you, the Buffalo Sabres. We do have from heavy hitters Jeffrey Add coming in next month. He's going to be talking a lot about around the Sabres. We're talking about the prospect system. We're going to talk about some of the players like Tage and you name it, and some of the stuff that's exciting that's been going on. Let's talk around the Bruins. Okay. What is the winning formula in Boston right now? What is making them so darn good? What are you seeing, or what are you hearing?
Leadership. It's leadership. The top guys get everyone else to buy in. and I know Krejci and Bergeron are gone, but when you have Marchand taking the reins, and I want to talk to you also about that hit that slew for potentially on Liljegren. I think that from him, Pasternak, some of the older guys who are there who really commit, play well, and they play a very hard-nosed system. They just won't go away. Boston is tenacious. They are gritty. They're mean. I mean, they're known as big bad Bruins, right? They know how to play, and they don't need to outscore their opponent. They just know how to defend. And they were missing, again, Charlie McAvoy was suspended for 4 games on his hit, So I think that's where it comes from, leadership. And Don Sweeney knows what to make work. It doesn't hurt that they have really excellent goaltending in Linus Ullmark, right? And Jeremy Swayman, who last year had incredible seasons, Vezina seasons, and now, are still having solid seasons. They know how to play, Evan. They know what to do, right?
That is true.
Playoffs is a different beast, but they look like they haven't lost a step from last year.
Yeah. So let me tell you what I think it is. That's interesting, the leadership piece, because that's where some teams that struggle, I believe, leadership helps you not go on those really bad losing streaks. They find ways to get the players out of their own minds, right? And back on the straight and narrow path. I actually think it's versatility. I think the Boston Bruins last year of 2022, dated back for a while, but they've been building that for a while. Also, I think the future core of what they're working with, they got Pasty, who is probably the most underrated player in the entire NHL is David Pastrnak.
And I think there's more underrated players, but
more underrated at what he can do. Name a player who's more underrated. I can't think of him. And don't go there yet. If you got him, let's talk about it later because we want to focus on the Bruins for our Bruins fans. Zaka is incredibly good offensive player that they took the chance on. Now you go back to McAvoy and Hampus Lindholm. Talk about a steal, right, out of Anaheim. Yeah, he struggled when he first came over. Having someone, when you got Swayman back there as your backup goalie, essentially, if you want to use that term, there's solid starting blocks, really, that their roster's been built around. This is Jake DeBrusk's year to really show himself. Last year, he had a real coming out year. Now, of course, he had all the other players. But this is a contract year, so I see nothing about him probably working his arse off to get really good. And I do see them probably finding a way to get an extension. Otherwise, they'll move on, and they don't mind moving on. And I guess it's their system of play. Their coach, definitely already, you could sign him up to win Coach of the Year.
Yeah,
because,
Chip Montgomery. Yeah.
Oh, man, that guy is incredible. Okay. So he is one of the guys that I would say that you need to jump on right away and say, hey, let's follow Montgomery's system. Let's look at what he's playing. But I will say he is playing a bit of his own system, much like the Vegas Golden Knights. So that's kind of interesting.
I'll give you 3 names right now, and people can argue or not.
Okay, let's do it.
That are more underrated than David Pastrnak. You ready?
Okay, more underrated. Okay, let's do it.
Kyle Connor of the Winnipeg Jets. Several 30-plus goal seasons.
What? So, okay.
Okay. Second one, Mika Zibanejad out of the New York Rangers.
Okay.
All right. You want the final one?
Yeah.
Carter Verhaeghe of the Florida Panthers. You tell me those guys aren't more underrated than David Pastrnak, I owe you a beer.
Okay, so you tell me what makes Carter Verhaeghe, okay, what makes him more underrated? Now, again, this is a comparison. I know there's context here, right? In your argument towards this, because let's remember, you're dealing with a player who last year played a full season, had 113 points, had 61 goals.
Yeah. So,
and people don't even talk about him in the top 5.
Steve
This
Dangle
year, he's on pace for the exact same this year already. 9 goals in 12 games.
Yes, he's a true goal scorer. He's really good at it.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong.
And the year before that, he had 77 points in 72. He had 48 and 48. He had 95 and 70. He had 81 and 66.
He is more known for goal scoring than creating plays and all around game.
He's been straight across. He is like a 50-50 between his assists and his goals. I'm just dating back. I'm looking right now on Elite Prospects. By the way, it's a place you guys can go find a lot of your background stats. He goes back to his second season in the league. And before, so you can go back to 2016. He's been more than a point a game player that entire time. I don't see how those guys are more underrated, but let me go pull them up. So you're saying Carter Verhaeghe, right?
Carter Verhaeghe. So he was drafted by the Maple Leafs. Wasn't going to amount to anything according to Steve Dangle when he was going through his draft picks.
That's true.
Toronto ends up going to Tampa Bay. He plays 52 games, 9 goals, 4 assists. Okay, he's the bottom pairing guy. He follows that up with Florida when he gets traded.
Okay.
43 games played, 18 goals, 18 assists. Right there. He's getting up there, right? Next season, Florida, 78 games played, 24 goals, 31 assists. So he's now up to 55 points. He continues to gradually grow. Last year, 81 games, 42 goals, 31 assists, Evan.
Yep.
73 points. He's
not even close to David Pastrnak territory. Not even close.
Okay.
Well, I'm looking. He's not even a point a game player. So 73 and 81, 55 and 78, 36 and 43.
He's getting there. He's underrated.
Oh yeah. Yeah. No, and I understand that, but he's a year older than David Pastrnak as well. He's not going to get better at this stage. He's a 0.69 points per game player as opposed to a 1.10.
I just don't think David Pastrnak is underrated. I think you've misheard or maybe
that's fair.
I think he's pretty well rated. I don't think he's considered he's not getting the recognition that some of the top 10 guys you would consider in the NHL. Tage Thompson had.
Okay, and who was the other player that you did mention? There was one.
Kyle Connor.
Kyle, I think that was the one that I was wondering about, right?
So he's had a few 30-plus goal seasons. We've talked about him in previous episodes.
Oh, great player. Great.
And I think he's very underrated. And I think you have to understand that for a market like Winnipeg, he is a star. But anywhere else, people don't talk about him enough.
Yeah, and he's young. He's still 26. He's right in his prime right now in the wheelhouse.
Exactly. And the third one, Mika Zibanejad, who is, albeit he's a center, so different responsibilities. But if you look at his numbers, and remember, Ottawa gave up on this guy. Pierre Dorian traded him away. He's got good numbers, right? And he's continued to grow his game. So it just goes to show you he can play. He doesn't even get considered oftentimes. Maybe in the top 30 centers. But really, think about what he's done for the New York Rangers on one of the biggest stages in the hockey world.
That's fair. I will say that Mika has never been. I feel like he's actually been overrated. When I've talked about it before, he is 30 years old. He's not getting. He is a big boy. He's 6'2", so he's actually got his place in time there. But if you think about it, his career has been a .79. He's had He's had three seasons where he was more than a point per game player. I think he's done well. I think he's a solid player. I think he gets more credit, though, as a first line. I think he's a second line center. And I actually believe that Mika is probably just barely a hair better than someone like Ryan Nugent-Hopkins. People don't agree with me. And I know you Ranger fans, you guys are going to be all over me.
Nugent-Hopkins.
Yeah. Now, if you give me the two differences, I take Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, who actually I believe is a better all-around player and can also PK.
Nuge never has really centered. He's played wing with McDavid or Draisaitl, but he's never centered those guys.
Yeah, the last 3 years he's been pulled out of center. True. Before that, he was always the center.
Which means Zibanejad kind of has an advantage because he does play with a Panarin. He plays with elite players out in New York. So, and we lost Evan. Well, guys, so far the night's been going pretty wild. Our guest, we're still trying to get a hold of him. We're hoping that he comes on soon and that he joins us. If not, we're gonna have to reschedule Alec again to a new show. Alec, if you're listening, make sure to give us a listen. Or are you just pulling pranks where you're turning me off just so that I go on with myself? One guy and no hockey talk.
Oh man, I one guy, we'll call it one guy in hockey talk. I was like, okay, I'm tired of this argument. I'm gonna do this. Talk to the hand, So, oh man,
Alex, we're sorry we couldn't get you on the show tonight. We hope to get you back and to get you talking.
Yes.
That's on me, so you guys can harp on me. But it's been a pretty fun show so far. We've had a lot to talk about. Evan, I want to talk about the Ottawa Senators and the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Okay? You know what? What do you want to talk about around them? Do you want to rant? Are you ready for a rant?
I'm ready. I know you wanted to rant, so I'll let you rant first. And then
I've already ranted, guys. We want to talk to you about
really
penny billionaires. No, I got to plug our sponsors. Penny Billionaires, electronic hard rock fuse band. Evan Berg. This guy is incredible. He reminds me a lot of Chad Kruger. If you kind of like that sound and that feel. And then you got Jack there on the drums playing a two-man band, electronic hard rock fuse band. They have given us the exclusive rights to their song Invincible that you'll hear in our intro and our departure here today. But they are bringing us today's they're bringing us the rant of the week. Oh my goodness. Okay, it's rant of the night, not rant of the week. I am awful tonight. Oh my goodness. Okay, let's do it.
It's not really a rant, but I know there's been a lot of calls by the fans, by the Ottawa Senator fans, and whether you agree or not, about firing DJ Smith, the coach. Now, there's a lot of pressure in Ottawa to make the playoffs again after missing last year, starting slow. They've been okay. They won tonight, if people were paying attention, 6-3 against Toronto. So that was a big win. But there's been a lot of talks. And last Saturday, after their loss to the Tampa Bay Lightning, I know Brady Tkachuk had some comments towards the fans. And, you guys can go check it out. And it's a passionate guy, their captain, sticking up not only for his coach, but his teammates and saying he has to do better. And even though they're giving it all, sometimes the results don't speak that way. So I think that it's been blown out of proportion a bit because now Claude Giroux this past week, an assistant captain, has come out and also defended, the coach and said, listen, we like him. He's doing good for us. We have to be better. But the problem is, Evan, and I know Brady Tkachuk alluded to this more about, fans booing and stuff. I understand that you don't like hearing boos, but the fans have a right to boo. Now, I don't agree with jersey tossing and things like that. Yeah. But you can boo. You paid for your ticket. They're expensive tickets. You're paying to be there. You want to see a good winning product. Sometimes it doesn't go that way. It happens. But fans are allowed to boo. And this notion that, players are upset about that. Like and Brady Tkachuk is a tough guy. I would not want to mess with him. Like he is tough. He can punch my lights out. Trust me. He would get 5, if not more, for hitting me and fighting, right? Like, as they say. But at the end of the day, we have to understand that there's a lot of pressure in that market. And Lauer came in. We came in last week. We talked about it. You guys can go watch that episode about what's going on in Ottawa, his comments towards the media and about the NHL. But the on-ice product, they're supposed to be a competitive team. And as Pierre Dorian alluded to before he got let go, the rebuild is over, Evan. So they got to show it on the ice. Now, it's a long season. There's a lot riding on them. There's still a lot of clout beyond the organization, stuff that, whether it's within their control or not, I mean, some of the mistakes, the Shane Pinto thing, the gambling thing, the new GM hire, the sale tickets, the potential expansion of the arena outside of where they're currently at, which, if you guys know, I was there with some friends. It was really good, but it's a little far. Like, there's a lot going on in Ottawa, and if they don't make the playoffs, remember, this is revenue for a new owner, and he wants to make back his money after spending almost $1 billion. Now, I don't know who has $1 billion in this economy, but it's not me.
Obviously, landowner does.
So that's kind of the rant. Like, I don't know your thoughts, but I think players need to just, like we want players to have personality, but don't attack the fans for booing. You know, fans are allowed to be upset with certain plays and stuff like that. But I don't know your thoughts.
Okay, so let's talk about this because why do fans boo? What? So I'm going to rant about this very thing because this actually bugs me both ways. So it bugs me when players think that we can't do what we want when we spend the money. We should be able to do whatever we want, you know. And I'm going to put myself, you know, well, long as it's legal, right? You know what I mean? Long as we're not death threats, long as we're not doing or hurting someone or being like a bully or harassing people. But to throw a jersey on the ice, to boo them out of the crowd, we should be allowed to do that. But let me tell you why you shouldn't do that, fans. Because why the heck do Canadian markets keep getting players saying they don't want to go there? It's because they're sick and tired of you booing them. Why are you? Let's just say it's your kids' team. Now I know you're going to say, Evan, you're comparing like, you know, professionals to kids. Well, do your feelings change because you make more money? You make, you know, I don't know, say you make $30 or $50 an hour or $1,000 an hour if you're a player. I don't know what it is. But do your feelings become less? Your feelings should become stronger because of that? No, not at all. And the reason is because you're human. And if you keep bugging us and keep ripping us apart, I'm not going to come to a Canadian market. I'm not going to go to your market. I actually am going to say I'm going to go somewhere else because when it's tough, what do? At a kids game, I don't go, boo, my kids, you're awful. Get off the ice. I don't do that. That's stupid. I get it. Don't say nothing. Be silent. Your silence says way more. And by the way, throwing a jersey on the ice, I'd rather have than a whole audience booing the players off. I don't think you boo your own team unless your team did something really stupid. They're trying their best, and how boo the GM for being such a crappy GM and not bringing the right. Okay, anyway, I'm done. I could go on. That's my rant. So, guys,
I understand. I think you could boo. I think the jersey tossing is silly. I think it's pointless. You've already paid for that jersey wherever you bought it. Yeah, you make teams pay with your wallet.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Season ticket holders. And one of the places, and you know, we can allude to this next week because we're kind of looking into this. San Jose, that team is struggling. How do you get people to come in and actually watch that? Because how often are you going to win? That team could be worse than the Washington Capitals in 74-75. And man, oh man, like how do you encourage people to come in and be like, we want this? You know, Anaheim for the rebuild that's going through. Let's applaud Anaheim right now, Evan, for the fact they've won 6 in a row. And they beat Vegas. They gave Vegas their first regulation loss. Like that's a big deal. Anaheim is rolling, and this is not the chagrin of the fact that Trevor Zegras isn't even playing to his full potential. You've got players like Cam Fowler taking on that leadership role. You've got Troy Terry, who signed that big contract in the offseason. You know, Pat Verbeek is really making that team elite. And remember, he's Yzerman light. He worked with Yzerman, right? Remember that. So
true. Okay, so why don't we do this? There was a whole bunch of stuff I wanted, or do we go here? No, we'll deal with this. I'm going to be putting an article out this week about some of the best players in hockey history. Obviously, we're talking about the Orson, the Gordie Howes, and we're talking about Pasternaks. And we're talking about Wayne Gretzky and Mario Lemieux, and we're going to talk about like the top, say, 10. What could be potentially or top 7? Is there anyone in the modern day era that would rate in there? I got an article I'm going to come next week when we come on. We're going to actually talk around that a little bit more. But what I'd like to do is finish off with the Vancouver Canucks and talk about them to finish off our show. All right, guys. So in saying that, I think not enough has gone into the storyline around this because the Vancouver Canucks, in my opinion, are you ready? Have already made a minimum the wild card playoff.
Yes.
They've already made it. And they are becoming a well-rounded team. People have ripped Rutherford apart for some of the things he's done, some of the moves he's done. But that guy has done something good. Oh, actually, so I just pulled up while we're looking. You're talking about Trevor Zegras. He gets this contract, puts it together, right? And he's insulted.
The bridge deal, yeah.
Yeah, 12 games, 2 points. Come on,
That's
Trevor.
what I'm saying. He's struggling.
Yeah.
He was benched a few weeks back.
So what's he going to get? 25, 30 points this year? Trevor, this might be the end of your great career if you don't pull this together, man. Get your psyche together. By the way, I've already said this at the end of the year. Trevor's going to be traded. So either by the trade deadline.
Look at players that are his peers that have gotten paid. Cole Caulfield in Montreal, and he's putting points. And Jack Hughes out. And I know Jack Hughes is injured right now, but
okay.
And then Kyle says booing works if the team is lacking effort. I agree. Yeah.
Really?
But also, if you look at teams like basketball, when there's a free throw, usually it's the opposing team, but they boo the player just to get into the mindset. Right?
Okay, but that's not. I don't think Kyle's saying that. Kyle is saying booing works if the team's lacking effort, not distraction. Kyle, if there's been a game that you saw that work. I'm intrigued. I'm going to follow up on that now, Kyle, because I know you're a pretty knowledgeable sports guy, and I'm interested in a little bit more. Send me some stuff behind that, because I actually don't think it does. It makes you mad, but I don't know if it actually we can prove that booing works, or maybe it's just a thought that you have. So anyway,
what's that Simpson thing? It's like boo earns. Are they saying boo or boo earns?
Yeah. Okay. So around the team right now, if you look, I think that they are only 2 moves away from having a team that has a chance to actually make in the top 4. Yeah. Two moves. One solid defenseman. One good, right-handed. And they can be first or second. You can move them around accordingly. But I do believe that's what they're missing there. And they need one more good depth, solid player that you're talking about on the third line. One more player, just a digger, like back in the Islanders days, or the Flames picked him up after a while. John Tonelli, or a Ryan Smith, or that kind of player that plays on your third line, a veteran, someone in there. Kyle's saying I was saying that it's acceptable from fans if the team's lacking effort. Oh yeah, okay, Kyle. Sorry, I thought you meant it will work. So my apology on that. So anyway, I think that they're lacking in those 2 pieces. That's the piece. Now Zylstra actually thinks Kessel. Could Kessel be a pickup for the Vancouver Canucks?
Could be.
Could that is an interesting twist. So, but Thatcher Demko is playing like I haven't pulled it up, but 940 something,
unreal
950
numbers.
Hockey. So let's just say he drops to 920. I mean, that team, I don't think they've given credit, and I'd like to put a little disclaimer for the Oilers. They've lost 3 times to the Canucks, which does not help. No. They're getting beat bad by the Canucks. So Les says no, and I'm guessing no means to Kessel. I'm guessing it means no to Kessel. Or do you mean no to something else? I'm just going to keep putting that up there on our screen, just kind of playing with you, Les, around that.
The one thing that we have to be mindful of is Demko's health. And now that they brought in Casey DeSmith in the offseason, I think he's been a good backup, and he's played very well. And surprisingly better than he did in Pittsburgh, which, Evan, Pittsburgh's struggling just as well, just like we talked about. And you said, well, it's only a few games in, but they're having a hard time over there. And I don't know if they're going to make the playoffs like the Oilers. They're not any better. So we'll get into it next week, but I credit and I applaud Vancouver Canucks. And the key person here is Rick Tocchet. He has got them playing the best hockey. Now, they are still making mistakes, don't get me wrong. But when your best players are your best players, your Quinn Hughes playing unreal. And if you watch Quinn Hughes, guys, he makes it so easy. Elias Pettersson playing unreal, being your top guy, and he has a contract coming up. That guy now could potentially command 12 to 13 million. That's how good he is. And so, they're going to have some stuff to deal with. But overall, I applaud the Canucks, and I look forward to seeing more of their hockey. And I've enjoyed their black jerseys because I have one myself.
So I just want to say, just quick nod. You're saying the Penguins are so bad. They have 11 games. They won 5. They've lost 6. I'm like, oh, I don't know if that's so bad. They're still basically playing almost 500 hockey, and they're still figuring it out. They essentially are only 1 point behind someone like the Kraken, who have 2 games in hand. I get it. Philadelphia's playing great. You name it. But basically, you give them 1 point in the next 2 games, and they're still sitting, say, in the top 20 in the league, and that's not even barely getting their game off the ground. So, I still don't see that the same. You're not going to get me to give up on them yet, buddy.
All right.
Well, guys, what the last thing Zill just kind of put out, they're allowing a high number of high danger chances. Now, Zill, are you referring to the Canucks, or are we back on the Oilers?
Or Pittsburgh.
Or Pittsburgh. That might be where you're referring to. And Les is saying no injuries at the moment.
Yeah,
for Vancouver.
That's the way you want to keep it. Yeah.
Yes.
So,
and I will say this. We already know that Connor McDavid, going back to our start, we know has been struggling a little bit around that. So high number of danger chances, yes, on the Canucks. And Zilstra will know because she's already she saw a little bit of their work and has been at some of their games and been following very closely around some of that stuff. So we appreciate all of you when you're checking out other content in hockey and you send back stuff, have conversations around it with us. It gives us a little bit of a feel because sometimes having the eye. Next week, I also want to talk about analytics again because I want to talk about how analytics are your best friend or they're your worst nightmare. Hello, there are some really good teams out there. Their analytics are not good, and there are some bad teams, and their analytics are showing well. So, all right, final thought, Pawel. Anything before we call this a wrap?
We're sorry we missed Alec tonight. We hope we can reach out and have you back on the show for another episode, but we appreciate it. Hockey's been wild. Remember to continue to check out our website for all the news and the latest updates. And remember that we love hearing from you guys, so please reach out. We love hearing all your thoughts, whatever passionate fan base. And we still want to get some people from some markets that we haven't heard from. Detroit, Nashville, Dallas, We're looking at you. Let's get some fans who are out there, who are those fans, to come on the show. We'd love to connect with you and get you on the show. That's all.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's perfect. And Patterson is not playing at 100%. I think the wrist is still bothering him a bit, Zill is saying. So, hey, that very well could be. I do just want to mention this next week. So our guest headliner going into next week, we didn't get to actually show you our guest headliner in our segment today because Alec not being able to join us for whatever the reasons are. But next week, and I'll make sure we set this up. So one of our sponsors, the owner of the Kalkaska Battlers, so we will do a plug in here. Go to their website, kalkaskabattlers.com. Go to YouTube /@kalkaskabattlers.com. And you can live stream their games, and they're in the Michigan Independence Hockey League, first inaugural season in a 4th year of the league. They are one of our partners, so basically check out online, or if you're in the Kalkaska area, check them out. Guys, it's been another ring a ding dong dandy, guys. Thanks again for joining us, and as we always say, in the meantime and in between time,
keep your sticks on the ice, stay safe. See you next week.
Cheers.
Could that just put him over the edge?
I'm not too sure. I don't think they did well.
He's a bully.
I'm just so sick and tired. I'm hanging on a wire, a foot over the fire, and it's burning. I can feel it inside. Done with the same cliche. Done with the day after day. There's got to be a way. Now is the time to break the tide. I'll live, I'll die for what is wrong and what is right. I'll take the pain for all the ones without a name. To be invincible, we'll be invincible.
They still have a lot of holes to fill.
He didn't get fired. He didn't get fired. No, he didn't get fired. He never got his contract renewed.